Welcome to Taiwan Report News Brief, news and analysis from Taiwan. I'm Donovan Smith. Up today on the program, South Korea to the rescue. The Supreme Court upholds a life sentence, but an NPP lawmaker wants the death penalty. The NPP proposes stronger sanctions on United Front infiltration. DPP lawmaker Gao Jiayu gets smacked for standing up to her party. Some mixed but very interesting business reports. The U.S. military shows more support for Taiwan. That New York Times ad seems to have worked. Taiwan pays a 150-year-old Scottish debt, and big changes afoot for China Airlines as some very creative ideas flow on how to tackle the challenge of changing the name to something else. But of course, up first, coronavirus news. Taiwan adds 2 new COVID-19 cases. Total at 395, reads the headline in Focus Taiwan. Both were imported. In Focus Taiwan, government considering mandatory virus tests for certain travelers. Now, I mentioned this in yesterday's program, that if there's testing at the airport and they're fairly quick tests, that could make things a whole lot smoother. However, right now, the tests take days, so this could be a problem. In RTI, Taiwan to begin requiring bank customers to wear surgical masks. Now, this is news for the reason that normally, for security reasons, people entering Taiwanese masks, I don't know why they said that, people entering Taiwanese masks are usually required to remove surgical masks and helmets. I assume they mean people entering Taiwanese banks. However, a union representing bank workers has asked for amid concerns about the spread of COVID-19 in public places. They need some serious editing help. Continuing in RTI, Taiwan thanks South Korea for helping citizens stranded in Guatemala. The Central American country closed its borders. Even though Guatemala is one of Taiwan's diplomatic allies, they had to arrange to get on a South Korean flight out. South Korea offered the seats to these three Taiwanese citizens on a charter flight evacuating its own nationals from Guatemala. Moving on to a totally different topic in the Taipei Times. Supreme Court upholds life term for child killer. In a final verdict yesterday, the Supreme Court upheld an earlier decision to sentence Wang Jingyu to life in prison for beheading a 4-year-old girl. New Power Party legislator Claire Wong, the mother of the girl, known as Little Lightbulb, said in a statement that she was disappointed by the verdict. The killing occurred on March 28, 2016, when Claire Wong and her daughter were walking to an MRT station in Taipei's Nehu district. Wang Jingyu grabbed the child from behind and beheaded her with a cleaver. In the Taipei Times, NPP urges changes to halt infiltration of the media by China. Tougher laws are needed to combat China's growing influence on Taiwanese media via funding and sponsoring news articles with the aim of subverting public discourse and undermining Taiwan's democracy, NPP officials said yesterday. Taiwanese society and protest movements have, over the years, fought hard to end the system of state-controlled media introduced during the martial law era. The NPP caucus whip said at a news conference in Taipei, adding these efforts have resulted in political parties, government agencies, and the military shedding ownership of media firms. Now we are seeing that an enemy state, whose regime is hostile toward our nation, has been using the power and money of its party, government agencies, and military to infiltrate Taiwan's media outlets, Chiu said. That's the NPP caucus whip. Of course, we must take a hardline approach to stop it, and the party comes out with some proposals on how to do that. Of course, the NPP caucus has only 3 members. Moving on to Storm Media, a local news report. Gao Jiayu, a DPP lawmaker, has been fined 10,000 NT by the party. The reason for this is she voted against the party on a land law. Now, she joined the opposition in this. There are concerns among the opposition and many in the country that this new amendment to the law, if it goes through, means that construction can take place much easier on state land or protected lands. In Focus Taiwan, Taiwan optimistic about GDP growth this year despite IMF's projections. Taiwan will undoubtedly maintain economic growth this year despite the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic, the nation's development policy planner said Wednesday when commenting on the International Monetary Fund's downplaying of Taiwan's economic growth to minus 4% in 2020. Now, that's a 6-point drop the IMF is predicting. However, the NDC, the National Development Council here, said that there were 3 things that the IMF didn't take into account. Firstly, Taiwan has controlled the outbreak much more efficiently than other countries. Secondly, since the number of Chinese visitors to Taiwan had already dropped before COVID-19 emerged in China late last year, the pandemic's impact on the nation's tourism and other relevant business sectors has been significantly smaller than some other countries in Asia. And thirdly, the NDC said, given the impact hit so swiftly that it caught the nation off guard, the government outlined several bailout packages for the worst-hit businesses and startups and moved to accelerate the implementation of public infrastructure and construction projects. Now, we have absolutely no idea what's going to happen with the economy. This is a little bit like trying to predict what's going to happen in a typhoon. Moving on to the Taipei Times, hotels see plummeting revenue amid pandemic. The little blurb here says price cuts appear to have had little effect in attracting guests as people have been advised to stay at home and avoid unnecessary trips. Basically, the hotels, there's a variety of hotel groups. They've seen everything from a 18.91 drop in business to some of them seeing an over 70% drop. Continuing in the Taipei Times, firms' China stakes tumble. New investment in China by Taiwan's listed companies totaled 11.7 billion NT for the whole of last year, the lowest over the past decade, as companies turn conservative amid U.S.-China trade tensions, the Financial Supervisory Commission said yesterday. At 11.7 billion NT, new investment last year not only plummeted 93% from 183.9 billion NT in 2018, but was also a fraction of the average 174.1 billion invested per year from 2010 to 2018, the data showed. Now, this is a very interesting move. That's a huge drop in the amount of investment in China. There's a very good chance that that will remain the case even after the COVID-19 crisis passes. But because those numbers were from 2019, it had nothing to do with the COVID-19 outbreak. Moving on to the Taiwan news, some good news for Taiwan. Taiwan dethrones South Korea to rule in semiconductor market. Taiwan claimed the lion's share of the global semiconductor market last year, removing South Korea from the top spot, according to a report released by Industry Association, Semiconductor Equipment and Materials International. Now, there was a 7% drop in 2019 over 2018, but Taiwan raked in 17.12 billion US dollars in sales, which represented a 68% growth. China retained second place with sales of 13.45 billion US. South Korea, whose sales plummeted 44% to 9.97 billion, was dethroned and slipped to the third spot. Now, of course, TSMC and other fabs here in Taiwan are big employers. In Focus Taiwan, U.S. military aircraft spotted near southern Taiwan. A United States military reconnaissance plane was reported flying near Taiwan's southern airspace Wednesday morning, marking the 12th time in the past 3 weeks U.S. military aircraft have been spotted operating near Taiwan. American military aircraft have been reported in the skies around Taiwan 12 times since March 25th. By comparison, Chinese military aircraft were spotted at least 6 times since January 23rd, according to publicly available information from aircraft spots and Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense. An analyst at the government-funded Institute for National Defense and Security Research said Sunday that China has expanded its maritime and air presence in the Indo-Pacific region. This is probably the main reason U.S. reconnaissance planes have recently been spotted operating near the Bashi Channel to monitor the movements of the People's Liberation Army in the area. Taiwanese analysts have also said the two sides are likely using the frequent appearances to signal their continued commitment to the region, despite the challenges both countries have had in containing the COVID-19 pandemic. Continuing in Focus Taiwan, Taiwan preparing for M1A2T tanks with help from U.S. Army. Taiwan has begun to prepare to train personnel and set up training facilities for the 108 M1A2T Abrams tanks the United States is to deliver to Taiwan from 2023 to 2026. Now, here's the part that I thought was interesting. The M1A2, among the most battle-capable tanks in the world because of its fire control system, will be assigned to the 6th Army Corps, which is responsible for the security of northern Taiwan, where most central government agencies are located, the Ministry of National Defense said. That would make sense, I suppose, because they probably don't do well in rice paddies. I'm not a military expert, though. I could be wrong. But to have them rumbling around in the streets of Taipei would probably make more sense. Taipei Times virus outbreak, ministry refutes WHO inclusion claims. The WHO should directly contact the government about inviting Taiwan to attend this year's WHA as an observer and accept its full participation in all meetings, mechanisms, and activities, a Ministry of Foreign Affairs official said yesterday. The call was made in response to a 13-point statement issued by WHO spokesman Tarek Jarosevich yesterday when asked by the Central News Agency about a crowd-funded ad published in the New York Times, which argued that Taiwan has been isolated from the global health body but can help the world in fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. So this shows that the WHO responded to that New York Times ad. Now, of course, New York is the headquarters of the World Health Organization. The United Nations. I believe the WHO is actually in Geneva. Now, it goes on here. There's another interesting thing I noticed here. While Taiwan's locations should see it included as part of the Western Pacific, the WHO's Western Pacific Regional Office has consistently refused to have contact with Taiwan or provide it with any public health information about the region. So it's good in the sense that the ad provoked a response out of the WHO. Continuing in the Taipei Times on the same topic, the headline is the 4 million NT dollar question. This is about it, and this is the people who put in that ad. And it says here, the original idea was to crowdfund an immediate response to WHO Director General Tedros publicly accusing Taiwan of launching a racist campaign against him. Tedros's comments came in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Taiwan has done a stellar job in containing the virus, despite still being barred from the WHO. Quote, at first, we just wanted to strike back at Tedros, Lin tells the Taipei Times. Within hours, the campaign raised over 19 million NT, nearly 5 times its goal of 4 million, with 26,980 people donating, and at one point crashing the website zekzek.com, the crowdfunding platform. Although people publicly questioned the effectiveness of the ad and the timing of it in the middle of a global pandemic, the team pushed through while closely interacting with its supporters, many of whom felt it would make Taiwan seem petty to just sling mud back at Tedros and the organizations he heads. And essentially it goes into a little bit about how they decided to go for a purely positive message about Taiwan's inclusion, or lack of inclusion, but how it wants to help. All right, to the Edinburgh News, or the Edinburgh Evening News. The headline reads, Taiwanese Association repays 150-year-old debt by donating face masks to key workers in Edinburgh. Quote, we wanted to help, but we also wanted to repay a debt. 150 years ago, Scottish people went to Taiwan to build a hospital. Now we want to repay the favor. James Laidlaw Maxwell, a missionary educated in Edinburgh, was sent to Taiwan in 1865. He founded the Presbyterian Church of Taiwan and also established a clinic, which later became the Sin Lao Christian Hospital. All right, to the big topic of the day. This is from the KMT official website. The headline is, CAL would get mired in 3 major predicaments if operations if it should change corporate name. The issue of renaming the corporate name of China Airlines keeps bubbling up. Now, their source is the UDN, by the way. Lin Jialong, Minister of Transportation and Communications, expressed support for a name change from China Airlines to Taiwan Airlines in order to avoid misunderstandings, i.e., people might mistake it for being mainland-based. However, figures in the aviation circles pointed out that the name change would leave CAL mired in the following 3 major predicaments in operations. How could China Airlines renegotiate and reconclude in its new name all agreements on freedoms of the air with other countries without raising objections? Number 2, would the existing rights of overflight automatically continue? Number 3, an airline operator usually has a large fleet of aircraft. Changes in China Airlines' huge number of international loan contracts would be difficult, if not possible. What would China Airlines do if the latter should be the case? Now, there's actually a lot of ways of dealing with this, but let's jump to the Taipei Times. The headline is, CAL to highlight Taiwan on delivering donations. So here's the first thing they're going to do. Lin Jialong was also quoted as doing this, that essentially the first thing that they want to do is change the livery or the painting of on the airplanes to make it look more Taiwan themed. Now, as of yesterday, it says here an online petition calling for CAL's name to be changed to Taiwan Airlines had 47,000 signatures, while a motion sponsored by DPP lawmaker to have the nation's official English language title changed to Taiwan or Chenghua has gained the backing of 17 lawmakers. I suspect they're mixing up 2 things here. That would probably be referring to the passport. Now, this is Su Zhensang, who is talking about the changing the livery here in this article, reminded reporters that Chiang Kai-shek International Airport had been renamed Taiwan Taoyuan International Airport when he first served as premier during then-President Chen Shui-bian's term. Now, he said that the airline would add images or symbols highlighting Taiwan on its planes. Now, he was asked about whether CAL could be renamed Taiwan Airlines. Su said it would not be easy, as it would affect the nation's freedom of the air and air routes, as the KMT noted. However, the International Civil Aviation Organization would not interfere with how an airline decorates its planes, as that is entirely up to the airline, he said. Now that's interesting. So basically they could write Taiwan all over the airline and presumably take China Airlines, or just abbreviate it CAL, on the actual planes. That would help. Now there's more. Taipei Times. Bailout briefing rerouted by CAL or CAL debate. The cost of renaming China Airlines was the subject of heated debate between Minister of Transportation and Communications Lin Jialong and several lawmakers at a meeting of the legislature's Transportation Committee in Taipei yesterday. Lawmakers opposed to the idea said the name change would cost the nation approximately 1.1 billion NT dollars, as well as the reputation the airline has built for itself over the years for crashing regularly. Oh, I'm sorry. That last part was not in the article, but they did for a long time actually have a very bad reputation. Lin, who has said he was open to the change, so he has said that he is open to it. Now, there's something that I want to jump to here in this article that is actually a very good point. And that is that China Airlines subsidiary, Mandarin Airlines, also flies to China and its special administrative regions. So a rebranded CAL could focus on other international destinations. Another option would be for the government to establish a financial holding firm to buy CAL, with a new airline being used for all international flights other than those to China, which CAL could continue to operate. So they could just switch all of the China-based or all the China traffic to Mandarin Airlines. That would get around a lot of the issue. Now, as far as that 1.1 billion, Lin Jialong, and this is a report, a local report here in Mandarin, the headline is that basically he says that the cost is a secondary concern to representing Taiwan. Now, to CNN, Taiwan's largest airline considers a name change. Now, the part that I'd like to jump to here is the article itself is not terribly good, but here's the part that is interesting. Should the name change actually get the green light, it wouldn't be difficult to implement, says Singapore-based aviation analyst Brendan Sobey. Quote, you can change your brand name without necessarily changing the name of the parent company or your legal corporate name, he tells CNN Travel. This would allow the airline to avoid complications related to issues like leasing, agreements, and airport slots. But it is still a big undertaking from a marketing perspective, he adds. In fact, Sobey says now might be an ideal time to go through with it as airlines restructure and adapt in the coming months. Quote, this provides an interesting window for China Airlines to change its name or brand as it looks at other potential strategic adjustments in the post-crisis environment and prepares to resume operations. It makes sense to pursue this now. And that's it for today. All the English language articles are up on Taiwan Report, plus a few other articles that I've put up for you to check out. Be sure to hit subscribe and look forward to tomorrow.
This has been brought to you by the Taiwan Report. For more content like this, become our patron at report.tw.
哎呦，就是那个台湾狗啦，最喜欢我的台湾狗了。